Welcome everyone to the March 7th, 2023 WMNR Commission meeting. We were just going through trying to make sure we had paperwork in hand. Hopefully each of you will have a copy of the agenda, a copy of the meeting minutes that we had from the last meeting, as well as the financial statement. If so, if you have those things, then we can start the meeting. Somebody like to make a motion? We'll get this started at 7:05.
I make a motion. I'm Betty Heaney from the commission that we begin the meeting.
At 7:05 p.m. Second.
Fred Velarde, commission member. I second that motion.
Great. So the meeting starts at 7:05. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you all. Happy that we can continue to do it this way. I think this has worked out very nicely for everybody involved. The first action after calling the meeting to order is actually the approval of the minutes. Have each of you, I know Betty hasn't had a chance to, have the rest of you had a chance to take a peek at the minutes?
I wasn't here last time, so I wouldn't know whether they were correct or not, so
Okay.
I have to pass on that.
Okay, so I guess it's Patty, it's you and me. Any thoughts or comments?
Make a motion. This is Patty Panicia, member. I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Great, thank you.
Betty, do you want to second the motion since you're at the meeting?
Oh, me? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll second the motion. I'm saying I can't see Patty.
No,
she
she doesn't have her
won't.
camera turned on.
Okay. I second the motion. I approve the minutes.
Great, then the minutes have been,
We need a vote, Brian.
I'm all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then the minutes will be approved and passed and submitted for permanent record. Moving on to the general manager's report.
First up is the financial report. It's for the period July 1st through January 31st. We don't have, the bank statements don't come for February, and we don't have a chance to reconcile February yet. So these are the last accurate numbers we have. You could see the three columns. The first one is what we did a year ago in that same time period, 7 months of our fiscal year. The middle one is the budget. The far right one is how much we've taken in so far. We're doing actually fairly well. You could see, particularly if you were to compare a year ago to now, that some numbers are higher, most numbers are higher. One of the things I should mention, the CPB grant under the current fiscal year, FY23, it doesn't show up yet because that check didn't come until early February. So it's not in these January listings, January 31st numbers. But we did get the CPB grants. The 60% of the CPB grant check has come in. So we're doing well. On the expense side, jumping to the bottom, our expenses are generally fairly consistent. Occasionally we'll have some special capital projects, equipment, tower work or something that all of a sudden makes 1 year different than another. But as you could see, if you were to compare expenses for FY23 compared to FY22 for the same first 7 months, yes, it does show that the expenses are higher, but we certainly have the income to balance it, or the income, the CPB check that has since come in. Again, we're doing well overall, and if there's any questions, I'd be more than glad to take them.
Big jump in rent. Is that a permanent increase or is that a
Well,
temporary?
the rent went from 29,700 to 31,800. That's that rent is for the rent here at the studios, at our studios and offices.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the budgeted. You're right. Okay.
And the budgeted is for the whole year. One thing I will mention, just since we're on the subject, that rent column is just for our studios and offices. For Selectman Kellogg, after the town council approved it in January, did send a letter to our landlord before the January deadline, exercising the last 5-year renewal option for us to stay here. So we're allowed to stay here through May 1st of 2028. And I've also since emailed the current landlord, and he's willing to extend that if we want. We've been working off of a lease that was signed by the previous owner. We're right now in our third and final 5-year rent period based on that lease from the previous owner. So anyway, he's willing to have us stay beyond this last 5-year period ending in 2028. I'm not going to sign up and commit to that right now, but that's just a good news to hear.
Excellent. The market has been relatively stable, so even looking forward 5 years, you're not panicked about some dramatic increase.
Yeah, I don't know what he's going to propose based on what we've been paying, but we'll find out sooner than later. We've been putting the lease we've had for the last 10 years, and we'll have for 5 more, does have a annual cost of living increase that kicks in once a year.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We just too often see them at the end of a lease contract where people have to leave because the new rate is just so high you can't manage it. And at least we're comfortably guaranteed for 5 more years, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And he's willing to have us more, so we'll see about the rate.
John has to go out for his rents, and he has to get them ahead of time. Otherwise, they hold a gun to us because they have the upper hand. So he's got to have a place to move to.
Right.
That's in the bag if the landlord says it's going to be a big price or not renew them.
Yeah, I mean, actually, if I had 5 years to go, in 2 years, I'd like to lock down a deal because it'll take us easily 2.5 years to find a place, cut a lease, and then renovate. We were so very fortunate in 2003 when we moved into the current space. The lease was signed February 1st. Renovations began 3 days later. And we moved in June 3rd, excuse me. And we're not going to be able to renovate the next place in 5 months. It could take a whole year. There could be shortages in parts, certainly labor. But I'd prefer to stay here than have to raise another $250,000 to have to renovate another place and move it. So there is that offset.
People should know that we did our own fit out because it was too out. It's outside of most of the big landlords' brain power to handle what a radio station takes. For example, air conditioning is low velocity, high volume special air conditioning. They're putting up air conditioners. I'm saying, what are you doing? I said, we paid extra to have those air handlers do low velocity, high volumes. You don't have the hum, get that kind of issue. So it's always better in our case, Kurt, you probably agree that we do the fit out because we know what we want.
Yep. So that's So to get back to the financial report, if there aren't any other questions, and we should have a vote to officially accept it.
Kurt, I just have a question about what's the deal with the administration costs now? Did they level, you had talked that you were gonna talk to the town. You had mentioned to me, and I haven't, I've been away, so.
No, I haven't. I know what the increase is they've already put in for their proposed budget for this
Oh,
coming
okay.
year. It's another couple of percent increase based on their required staffing increases.
Oh,
Because the real issue is that the base amount set by First Selectman Boozy back in 2009 was never justified. So any increases since then for staffing increases, it's lacking a basis. But that's a complicated issue at the moment. I'll wait on it. And when we do the budget for next year, we know the numbers to put in.
okay. Yeah, it's just that I missed so much that I didn't know I missed the last meeting. I wasn't sure if anything had changed about that.
No, not yet. If it had, I certainly would have mentioned it, but nope.
Very good. Any other thoughts or questions?
I, Betty Heaney, a member of the commission, approve the report.
Make a motion to approve the report.
Yes, I do. I worded it wrong. I'm sorry. Made a motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Betty. Second,
I'll Fred Velarde, I'll second that motion. That everything looks pretty good.
thank you kindly. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
All right. All right, the financial report will be accepted as presented. Thank you very much, Kurt. That was helpful.
Sure.
I guess now you want to go on to discussion about the Mount Kisco translator?
Yes, let me go on to the rest of the general manager's report. I just have to find it. Here we go. Okay, so yes, geez Louise, around February 16th, the Mount Kisco translator, after a 2.5-year absence, was turned back on the air. And already we've gotten a number of favorable comments about it. We're very fortunate, very glad to have it back and have it working again. I'm going to start maybe another couple of months, look at another potential place to move it to when the lease is up in 4 years. The next location might require a little approval from zoning because they're in a non-conforming use right now, and it'd be an additional non-conforming use. Anyway, I also have to double check and see if this potential other area where it would cost us less to operate, and whether it would cover an important enough area for us. So yeah, we got this going, and if we don't, the contract will extend, we'll extend another 5-year term if we don't let them know in another 4.5 years. So I want to get that figured out ahead of time to see if there is another possible location for it. So let's see. Moving on to WMNR 40th anniversary concerts. We've got one lined up for sure. It'll be our broadcaster Garrett Stack presenting Boomer Hits, and he does it with guitar and a lot of backing tracks, electronic backing music tracks. We'll be renting the Dudley family farm and its barn in the north end of Guilford for July 29th. A concert from 4 to 6. It'll be free. Place will sit around 100. I think we'll give away the tickets for free, and people will have a good time. It's important for us to do some events down in that neck of the woods. We've got a lot of listeners to Guilford with the transmitter there all along the shoreline, but we haven't done the in-person events down there since we turned it on in 1993. So that'll be good to do. I'm also hoping that Will Duchamp will present a piano recital in Guilford in the fall. He has a possible free location worked out. Just got to get the details going. Technically, it's our 41st anniversary. These are just concerts that are an extended part of our 40th anniversary outreach that we do. We won't do these yearly, every 5 years maybe, but it's just good to do some in-person outreach.
Great.
Kurt, how was the attendance at the 2 previous recitals?
Garrett Stack had about 100 people at the Edmond Town Hall Alexandria Room. Will Duchamp for his recital in Danbury had around, I think, 60 people. So it was well attended. And there were 2 of our broadcasters there, of course, with a lot of listeners. But people really enjoyed being able to meet each other. You know, every 5 years, when last summer, when we had the 40th anniversary open house here with the tents, there's a lot of people, and it's hard to get a chance to talk to everybody you'd like. At these events where there's less people, you get and there's more time where they're enjoying the concert. They're very good activities to be able to put on. We won't do them every year, but I'm glad we're going to keep things going. We do have to rent the rooms that these people play in, but they're not too expensive, and it's a good outreach.
Very nice. Any questions? No? Okay, so we'll move on to the strategic plan.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'll be working on, trying to pick somebody to do a strategic plan. Rose and I had a Zoom with one person last week. They just sent a proposal this afternoon. The price is going to be a bit steep, so I'm going to consider some other participants. But I'd like to come up with a strategic plan with for a 5-year period, covering, say, 5 or 6 action points for keeping the station on track and moving forward.
So how would you find a consultant that would have enough knowledge about what you're doing?
Well, the first person I approached, who's asking for a lot of money, more than I want to spend. They've done a lot of work for nonprofits, and I've seen them do nonprofit Zoom presentations during COVID for the New Haven and the Waterbury foundations. The New Haven and Waterbury located foundations. They have different names than those now. But there are folks that specialize in nonprofit strategic planning. Many of the things when an organization wants to know how effective is it being, and if it's a nonprofit in providing social services, and they have to do feedback with the folks that they're providing the services for. One of the things that's different about WMNR being a public radio station that is connected with a lot of the other public radio stations through the industry groups, the greater public, which is for public radio and TV fundraising, and other ones, is there's an awful lot of data, including comparative data. So I can see how many people are listening to us based on the professional Nielsen audio listening estimates. And I can see, gee, how does that compare with other cities, with 50, 100, 100,000, 150,000 population, whatever. And then also in terms of how we're fundraising, every year for, 25 years, we participated in a benchmark study for our fundraising ability with somewhat comparable stations, not in the very largest markets. So we're fortunate that we have a lot of data. There isn't quite as much to collect, though I would still do a survey open to the public where they could put in some comments about our music and what we mean to them. But in terms of, and also we have numbers in terms of how many people are streaming us, how many people are using the archived audio where they could listen to something that happened in the last week, not right now. We have a lot of data that we're able to collect. to give a good idea in terms of, how we're doing. And some of these things we know we need to do more digital. Think about how do we best advertise for audiences who like our music that don't live here anymore. We have a number of major donors who visited Connecticut or used to live in Connecticut and don't anymore, whether they're Arizona or New York City or wherever, and they're listening over on the internet from their new location in a totally different state. So, of course, the internet's has its pluses and minuses. A lot of other stations are available besides us, but so just want to try to sit down, and I do want to bring an outside facilitator to help have a session or two with some of our broadcasters, some of our staff, to collect their ideas. I'm sure we'll do a SWOT analysis, the SWOT analysis for our strengths and weaknesses, and what are some of our potentials, because it isn't just that myself and a couple of staff can see the big picture. I want to make sure that we draw in some of the broadcasters, the volunteer broadcasters that are interested, and of course, any of our paid staff as well. And so I have to work with the strategic planner coming up with the committee. Normally, this would be a function of board, or a board would appoint a committee. This thing has no legal standing, this committee, so I will form something that has 2 or 3 people who represent listeners, 2 or 3 people that represent broadcasters. Obviously, we'll have our own staff on it to make sure that when we're then working on the details. So there are a number of people we could choose from. I just want to get a good person at not too much money, and keep moving things forward. The big picture is the easy growth for the station, that we did in the first 20, 25 years. That isn't there anymore. The number of people that listen to radio is reducing. The number of people that have radios is reducing. So now we have to work a little harder to keep going, and we need an official strategic plan to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's a huge ask, right? To have a person that would be knowledgeable in not-for-profits and be able to discuss all that entails. A person that is knowledgeable in radio and all that entails. Person that understands the operations of managing dozens of employees / volunteers / people involved. And then also having a relationship with the town and figuring out where the 2 organizations complement each other versus where there's challenges. So the title strategic plan kind of piqued my curiosity as to which one of those areas you might touch upon. And it sounds like you're hoping for touching upon a couple of them, which is going to end up having not only a fair amount of consulting to give guidance, but quite a bit of time to absorb what WMNR is. So I can imagine that could be costly, and to find the right person is really key.
Yeah.
So
I do want to have one of the WMNR Commission members be part of the strategic planning process, so nobody thinks that this group's going out on its own, so to speak. So there would be some way for, of course, when the strategic plan is done and it's presented, it'll certainly be presented to the WMNR Commission. But even as it's being put together, I'd like to see if I couldn't get one of the WMNR Commission members to officially be a part of that process. We don't need to
that's very nice, and
reinvent it.
I don't have any problem with you going to create this type of group, because we're looking out on behalf of the town to make sure that WMNR is running solid and leaving the town in good shape. And fortunately, through all my years, that's never been an issue. But we don't have that creative side for taking this into the next decade and running it with fundraisers and the arts and the talent and the leases and all the different components that we've glanced upon. So I'm thrilled to hear that you have an idea in mind. So, Fred, Betty, Patty, anybody have any thoughts?
No, I
So-
think it's a good idea.
Sounds good to me.
Fred, anything you want to share?
Well, we've talked about this off and on over the years that I've been there.
Yeah.
About it, and it's difficult because you want to know who our listeners are and get a focus on how we can better. We've always talked about, just like church being involved with St. Peter's, we've always talked about attracting younger people. And that's been a strategy that we've kicked around for a while. So I think somebody looking at us from the outside, I think might be a very positive thing, because be less, there would be less of the like, well, that's my territory. No, that's something that I do. It would be more diplomatic, I think. So I think that's a good plan. And I'm sure that as a broadcaster, everyone's going to have their say or their opinion, of course. But I think there's some real strategy that needs to be focused on younger listeners, reaching more people in the areas where we get a lot of contributions from, Long Island and Westchester County, places like where we get where North Carolina. When I was pitching the other day, somebody from North Carolina used to live here in Connecticut, still listens. We need to be able to do more of that, because we don't have a lot of direct competition, even, I think, even outside of Connecticut, never mind Connecticut. And as I told Kurt, when I was ill, I listened to WMNR a lot, and it's a really good radio station. I'm proud to be part of it. And I think we need a strategy to let more people know that. That's in my estimation, that's the biggest problem. I mentioned to people, I do a classical music program on Tuesday mornings. For 80% of the people, it goes over their heads. Oh yeah, fine, that's great. I'm a mechanic. What do I care? So I think it's meeting those folks, and we know they're out there, and a lot of them listen. A lot of them don't. Those are the targets.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, from each of your thoughts and words, it sounds like we're all kind of like-minded, that this would be complementary to the commission as opposed to conflicting with the commission. And
Yes.
I'm cautiously optimistic and look forward to hearing more about it. So great. If there's nothing else to add, we'll continue forward on the agenda. Anybody else?
The
No?
topic we're under now?
Pardon me, John?
What was the topic we're under now on the?
We're just
agenda?
finishing section D, which was the strategic plan. We move on now into new business if nothing else needs to be discussed on that. So, okay, moving on to new business. Kurt, do you want to take this?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to put on the agenda, it's doesn't require a vote, but it's just for information. Thanks to major donor who we met with last summer. He said, is there any project that capital project you'd really like to get some help on, get going? So he identified two things. Right now, the 300-foot tower at Stepney Elementary School that we use has two incandescent 620-watt bulbs at the top, and they blink red at night, and so the tower could be seen during the day. It's painted aviation orange and white. The bulbs are only $25, but you got to go pay a guy $1,000 to go change them. So one of the things I wanted to do is upgrade the lights from incandescent LED, which of course people say, oh, that's nice, uses less electricity, which it does. But more importantly, the new lights would have a bright white light during the day and a dimmer red light at night. The bright white light during the day is would allow it to be visible for airplanes, and we would no longer have to paint the tower the aviation orange and white stripes, which is an expense, that we have to bear every 5 years. It's not cheap. So this gentleman, we also wanted to put in a Wi-Fi link, our own dedicated professional Wi-Fi link between the tower at Stepney Elementary School and our studios, so we could have our own data backup channel. So the total project was going to come to $28,000. He was willing to donate half of it if we could raise the other half from other people. And so far we've raised $13,000, $550. So of that 14,000 we needed to raise. So we're going to get the rest in. We're fine. So we're going to start moving that project forward. It'll take probably till next fall or winter before they get the lights, and then they're able to install them, because tower climbers are quite busy. But that's one good capital improvement that we're able to do, and we're able to do it thanks to a major donor who wanted to give significantly and have his money help go to encourage other contributions, which we did. We got $50, a number of 1,000s. We also got I think it was a 3,000 or 4,000 in there. So we approached only a handful of people, around 10 that gave, of our major donors, and it's going to improve, help keep things going here. We did replace the original tower guide wires a couple years ago, and now we'll replace the original tower's top lights.
I have a question. Because we have the tower right now is red and white, orange and white, during the day and night, do we have to tell them that we're no longer taking care of that, or do we have to paint the tower all white or something?
That's my question.
Tell the FAA.
Well, I'm going to look it up in the rules and regs and ask somebody who knows about these things. So right now the tower just got painted last year, so it's in good shape, so to speak. So I'll find out.
Okay. We save money too, right, on the electric bill?
Oh, yeah. Because those light bulbs are blinking. They're on and off 12 hours a day, and they use 1,200 watts. So, yeah.
Great. Any other questions on that? Okay.
The other new thing I wanted to mention is that we're going to look into hiring an outside person to do some broadcaster development. We hired somebody a few years ago, and they were very good. They work remotely from San Francisco, and they don't tell the broadcaster what to play. That isn't how we work, but they find out how does the broadcaster view themselves, how would they like to improve. They lead them through a process where they're encouraging them to be able to do a little better job. So we did that about 4 years ago. We're going to offer it again. We're just we've got 2 different potential people we're looking at, trainers that would work remotely on Zoom, and I don't think we're going to have more than 4 or 5 broadcasters take us up on it, but still, it's a good thing to offer. The broadcasters really appreciate it. I know the last 4 that went through it really appreciated having that sort of professional support.
It sounds promising. Great. Anything else under new business?
Nope.
Okay, then we'll move on to the public participation portion of our program. John?
2 items. One is just a heads up. About 3 years ago, it dawned on me that the town was heading towards its 200th anniversary. We were around here for the sesquicentennial. That was 150, and now we're at the 200. So I grabbed 2 of my colleagues that I work with on town stuff, and we wrote a white paper telling the town you should think about doing a 200th anniversary. And by the way, here's the steps and how you can do it. And we sent that to them and they kicked that off. Are you involved in that, Brian?
I started down that path. They had put together a group 3 years ago, right in the beginning of COVID, and didn't have any meetings throughout COVID. So the meeting started last year, and with all I had going on, I asked the first selectman to pick. I said, I'll either take my position on the bicentennial or with WMNR, you pick. And he flipped it back to me and said, I'm not going to pick that. You pick. So I've stuck with WMNR, and I released my commitment to the bicentennial. But I brought your sheets to the initial meeting, and so did Vita Stone, and we had the book that had all the images and all the scrapbook really from the last one, and that history and your thoughts were very much appreciated and integrated into their thinking. So it continues forward, and it's supposed to be this May.
Yeah, it's going to be linked up with Memorial Day, right?
Yeah, they're gonna have
Technically,
fireworks and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want
It's not going to be anywhere near the scale of. I'm sorry if this is off topic. We can come back to this after if you like. But if you have a correlation to how it impacts the radio station, by all means, bring it up. But this project is way smaller than what you all had done 50 years ago. It's not going to be to that scale.
There was a second section to that was not town oriented. So to be fair, back then, they had a separate group do Monroe Day. And Monroe Day linked up with the sesquicentennial. And about 99% of the people thought that was one event. It wasn't. It was really two organizations doing two events, but it blended perfectly.
Very nice. So I'm off of that group. I'm not up to speed with what they're doing these days.
Yeah, it would just be good to be aware that, people always say they're not aware of WMNR, and we should be aware of some of these, major milestones in the town's history. That's the only reason I bring it up.
That's a great point. If we as WMNR want to participate in any way, shape, or form, whether it's having a booth or whether it's broadcasting information or anything that we can think of, I can tell you the team appreciates independent thinkers that can come forward and follow through, because it's a small team and they have a short amount of time and they have almost no money. So if you have an idea in mind, let's get cracking on it. Their budget was $20,000 set aside by the first selectman. That was it. And they're talking about doing fireworks and things, which would cost at least $20,000. On my exit, I said I would chip in $1,000 towards the fireworks. Sorry to have to leave, but I would chip in. I'm the only donor, as far as I know, right now on the fireworks. So,
Speaking of history, John, you're going to mention WMNR's 50th anniversary this year?
That was my next topic, just to avoid confusion with 40 and 50. 40 is the 40th anniversary of classical music on WMNR, which is now a considerable part of its operating time that we've been on the air. However, the station actually goes back, and we're having our 50th anniversary of the founding of WMNR and going on the air with adults and students. And it was more adults involved too than people would know. They would say it's a high school station, but we had a lot of them who now have mostly suddenly passed away that did talk shows, and they did town meetings and things of that nature, and sports. They're big. The adults were big on doing sports announcements. So we've actually been on the air 50 years, which is pretty amazing. It's hard for us to even wrap our arms around that concept. We actually go back. FM went full-time, not testing, around 1941. So we are a considerable part now of the history of FM radio. Probably over, I didn't do the exact calculations, probably over 50%, of the time that FM has been around, that we've been around. It's quite unusual.
Yeah.
So that's why when you see, if you get a 50-year mug from us, it's going.
That's a big point there. I just had to write it down. Amazing. Great. So you'll let us know if there's any celebration or anything we need to be a part of?
Yes, we're working on a dinner on June 24th, and the commission's welcome to ask questions and want to know if they want to join. But these were students back then. Now they're in their 60s, and Carol and I still call them the kids. Yeah. And Doug Taylor will be another major player, Kurt, on donations to help fill that point.
I've never gone to one, but I will be this year because I really want to acknowledge what John and Carol started. And there won't be anybody else there that I know, but I just want to let them know how important those early years were, and fill in a little about the remaining 40, which they helped make possible.
What a wonderful legacy.
Actually, just for a little bit of interesting history is that the late Ron Dudak started classical music on WMNR as far back as 75. And he was doing it, coming in on a Sunday, turn the transmitter on, do classical music, shut the transmitter off and come home. So he played a good role in establishing classical music at WMNR before it was a classical music station.
Yeah.
Incredible.
What about me? I'm the last I'm probably the last intern.
Yeah, I didn't see your picture, Mark, so I didn't say that. Mark was the last student, as far as we can tell, on WMNR, and the ones that are going to come back to the dinner celebration on June 4th, by the way, a lot of them flying in. June 24th, I'm sorry. Anyway, I lost my train of thought.
Mark was a high school intern after we turned classical, so he wasn't there in the 1973 to 82 portion. He was there in the late 80s.
Yes, and now he plays.
I'm not that old.
Sorry, late 90s. It's been 4 decades. I lose track of which decade's what, Mark.
Do we give you your 30-year coin or something like that of internship?
It's hard to believe that I've been with the station more than half my life.
It sounds like half of its life too.
That's true for Carol and I, Mark. Carol and I have been with WMNR since 70, 71 when the paperwork started to come out.
I'm pushing 30 years with the station.
Good.
And Carol and I combined have 120 years.
Don't even talk about it.
For me and 61 for
We
Carol.
don't need to know that.
You put them together, it's 120 years of fine
Of what?
broadcasting.
Anyway,
Take great comfort in that, right? Like when the guy that put the roof on my house said, "Hey, and this will probably be the last roof you ever need." Thanks, pal.
thanks so much, right?
Yeah. Well, that's terrific. Thank you very much. Any other public participation? Mark, any other comments or things you want to share?
Nothing that I can think of at the moment.
Okay. Rose, anything that you want to chime in on?
She was going to unmute herself and then she disconnected instead.
Oops.
She hit the wrong
Okay,
button.
I'll take that as a no. Of course, she has to write down when we adjourn. So
Well,
we have to wait
she's
for her to come
logging back in now, so give her a second. Connecting to audio. Okay, now she's there. She's unmuted.
Hey, Rose,
Sorry.
anything do you want to chime in there and public participation?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I can't tell you how much we appreciate what you're doing for us.
No problem.
You do such a great job taking these notes, and you sit there very quietly, but I just, I don't know, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Great, so I guess it's time to move on to our adjournment. Who would
Well,
like to make a motion to adjourn? It's 7:50 tonight.
Yep, this is Patty. I'm the member and I make a motion to adjourn at 7:50 PM.
Great, second,
Second,
can you be a little more official?
Have to say who you are.
oh, that wasn't official.
That wasn't official.
All right, I'm Betty R. Heaney, and I a member of the commission, and I vote that we accept and second the motion.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.